record this. So I want to welcome you all to our new student advising session. This is for our MUPPs who are going to start in the fall. And so I know it's a beautiful June day out there, and I'm sure there are a million things you would rather be doing than sitting and thinking about school. But we will try to make this interesting and exciting for you, and we will answer your questions. So we will make it worth your while. And I'll just give you a little bit of background. The reason why we do this is because there are some pieces of advice that we would like to impart on all of you, knowing full well that we will spend a lot of time with you individually doing advising and just talking to you about your sort of hopes and dreams for the program. But this is a good way to sort of get you all together in one place, even though now it's virtual, in one virtual setting, and to give you an overview about the program and how to navigate through it, right? So this is a time to talk technicalities. This is a time to talk logistics. In the past, many of you have participated in our information sessions. We had a great student panel last week where you heard, those of you who joined us, from about 8 of our current MUPPs about what drew them to UIC and to the program, what kind of work they're doing. But this session is really, like I say, sort of nuts and bolts, intended to help you figure out what classes you're going to take each semester, maybe give you a little bit of food for thought about the different specializations, advice about how to just, physically enroll and register for the classes, and anything else that would be of interest for you. And we're recording it, and we'll put it up on our website. So if there's information you want to review, or you were going too quick and you want to sort of slow down, or you remind yourself, that is fine too. So without further ado, we'll get started. Right now you have myself. I'll introduce myself in a minute, Rachel Weber, and our graduate academic advisor, Dominic Belcaster, and we will be your hosts and guides for this session. If we were meeting in person, only if, we would be welcoming you to our building and to our offices. This is a picture here of CUPPA Hall, the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs Hall, 412 South Peoria. That's the Blue Line, UIC Blue Line station that you see there in the that's foregrounded, just a couple of yards away from the entrance of our program. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are online. We'll also talk a little bit about what our expectations are, as far as we know, for whether or not classes will be online starting in the fall. We'll talk about that in a second. But just to welcome you virtually to UIC, we are the only public research institution and university in Chicago, and we are a big institution that takes up a lot of the west side of the near west side of the city. Last time I checked, it was something like 32,000 students were enrolled at UIC. And so that's the sort of bigger campus. We are a little set apart. We are just north of the main campus. Our building is, CUPPA Hall is. But in joining the MUPP program, you are a member of the graduate college, UIC's graduate college. So you're a graduate student in the graduate college. So they set policy and sort of guidelines for graduation. You may not have to interact with them much directly. You'll mostly be interacting with us. But our college, the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, I'll be referring to it as CUPPA, and I think this slide helps just because we're a little bit of an acronym soup here, alphabet soup, and the sooner you learn some of these acronyms, obviously UIC is an obvious one, but CUPPA, CUPPA Hall, our department is UPP. So we are part of the College of Urban Planning and Public Affairs, one of the smallest colleges on campus. We have 2 academic programs, urban planning and public administration, and 8 different research centers and institutes. You may be interacting with folks at the college level. You may be taking classes in public administration. So we're a nice small college. and then within that college, our department. Our department has a department head. That's Nick Theodore over there, if you can follow my cursor. That's me. That's me, Rachel Weber. I'm a professor in the department and the director of graduate studies. And here's a picture of Dominic, who is also on the session and will be co-leading it with me. Dominic Belcaster is your graduate academic advisor. So these are the folks you're likely going to be interacting with the most. Nick is department head, me is DGS, and Dominic as your academic advisor. All incoming students are also assigned a faculty advisor after the 10th day of the semester, which is another reason why we do this session, because you may not know who your faculty advisor is when you start the program or before the program. And we try to match you with your stated interest. We try to match you with a faculty member in the area of specialization that you have mentioned you're interested in studying. So whether that is economic development or environmental planning. And so you'll schedule an appointment with your faculty advisor, you'll meet them. So all of these folks are here for you, here to help you navigate through the program as best you can. And you would go to them for different things. So for example, you would talk to Dominic if you had questions about registering for classes, or if there's a hold on your account. You would talk to me if you had questions about urban planning and more generally sort of like, what's this field all about? And sort of, I can't decide whether or not I want to choose this specialization or that specialization. And I can provide you with more of that sort of content knowledge, or if you have a sort of specialist, you want to create your own specialization, or you have interests that extend beyond the field of urban planning and you're wondering where at UIC you might want to take some additional classes or look for some research assistantship opportunities, I'd be the person to talk to. If you've got questions about more generally about the sort of policies of the program, our head, Nick Theodore, would be a good person to talk to. Your faculty advisor is a good person to talk to in looking ahead and thinking about what kind of classes you want to take and thinking about professional opportunities in the field. So there's a kind of division of labor, but we all sort of share responsibility to make sure that you feel cared for, and that you get your questions answered and answered quickly, and that you find it easy to manage at this big institution. And what's nice is that we're a small department, small college. It has a kind of a very strong sort of community feel. I don't think people feel like they sort of fall through the cracks. So that's a nice thing about our department. Here are just some pictures of the other faculty. We have about 20 faculty. I won't necessarily go through each one, but these are folks in Ning is in environmental planning, and Kira is in spatial planning. So we all have a specialization that we are most sort of aligned with, or that we each of these specializations meet as these to talk about course offerings and whether there's something happening in our field and we should develop a new course around it. So each of these faculty members is associated with a different specialization, and you'll be meeting, looking at them, pretty much, most, if not all of them, and teaching your classes. In addition just to teaching their own classes, we also play different roles. We're guest lecturers in each other's classes, or even if you didn't take a class with Moira, she's the director of the Urban Data Visualization Lab. So you may have interaction with her as she manages some of the GIS offerings and the research, the teaching assistants that are associated with your GIS and spatial analysis types of classes. So we're a friendly bunch. We really care about students. Before COVID hit, we were all around the department. Like I say, I had a very nice sort of community and communal feeling. And even though we're all operating virtually, we're very accessible and responsive. So if you have a question, we will get back to you as soon as possible. So Dom, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and also about student involvement?
Sure. So just to kind of quickly echo what Rachel said, I think our faculty is beyond supportive. I have now faced this group of faculty as an undergraduate student, a graduate student, and now a staff member within the department. And through each of those various levels, they have guided and supported me through each of the next steps that I wanted to take. And there was never a moment where I felt there were malicious intents with working with a faculty member, or I could avoid them or should avoid them for any given reason. Uh, you are all set up for success with this group of faculty. So I'm excited for you, just knowing what I went through in my own personal experience, and I know that yours will probably mimic that. So that's exciting. But in terms of student engagement or involvement, I have been, like I said, I've been a student at UIC for both undergrad and grad studies, and I've been involved in various things throughout campus in that time. From everything with civic engagement initiatives, with the increased voter rates that happened at UIC, to everything with leadership development and professional development. And so my area of concentration before working with CUPPA has been with student affairs and student involvement. So this is an area that I find, near and true to my heart. And now I get to cover kind of the student orgs from the UPP lens. So if Rachel, you want to go to the next one. So if you were on the call last week, which was the student panel, we actually had some of our student org members come forward and speak about their experiences, not only in the MUPP program, but also with their student orgs. And so that event was recorded and will be launched live on the Join Our Community webpage that each of you should be aware of by the end of this week. So if you want to go back, you missed that event, or you just want to rewatch it, it'll be housed there for you. But just to cover quickly, just the student orgs, this is UPP specifically. These orgs fall under our department, have no kind of larger relation to UIC. There are many other organizations across campus that you could join, but these are specific to planning students. The one, and I would say the largest, is UPSA, Urban Planning and Policy Student Association. They were nationally recognized for student engagement by the APA, which was a big deal back last year. And then there's others: Society of Black Urban Planners, the Latino Planning Organization for Development, Education, and Regeneration, Women in Planning and Public Affairs, right? And so these student orgs have done everything from service projects throughout the country. They've partnered with local elementary schools on the south and west sides to really educate students on what urban planning is and entice, younger students on the ideas of, activism, social justice, and how planning could aid in those kind of areas. And then lastly, we have the CUPPA Alumni Association Mentorship Program, which is a one-to-one program where you are paired with a alumni of CUPPA, more specifically a UPP alum. And so you basically get some guidance with this mentor. And so it's an opportunity for you to develop, yourself professionally and network with a larger planning network for job opportunities down the line. Rachel, you could go ahead and click next. Cool. And then this, I won't get too much on this. This is more for your benefit. This is some contact info for those respective organizations. So if you're interested in joining right off the bat, feel free to contact these emails specifically. They will be taken to general accounts, and they'll be able to navigate your requests based off what you're sending. Cool. You could skip ahead. Yeah. So student resources at CUPPA specifically. This is one of my favorite things. As an undergrad, this was being completed. And so I stayed only at CUPPA just to enjoy this. I'm totally kidding, but it is one of the many facets of why I did stay, was that CUPPA dedicated a specific floor to students. Faculty has no access, staff has no access, which is a bummer now because for the last 4 years of my life, it was home to me and now I can't go in. But it's a space where students have control. So you could do everything from group meetings for group projects, group research. You could host, larger meetings with your student orgs. It's an event space. If you want to do a networking event, it's totally student controlled. So whatever you want to make of this space, you can. And if we, faculty and staff, ever wanted to enter the space or utilize it, we have to get permission from you, which is different than, the traditional structure of how things operate at institutions. But this isn't the only space for students to work in. There's the lounges on the department's floor. So there's multiple conference rooms there. We have computer labs within our department, all equipped with GIS software, so you don't have to worry about downloading the software unless you want it for your convenience on your own laptop. And then again, with CUPPA, it's exclusive to CUPPA students, right? So after a certain point of the day, you have to swipe in to receive access into the building, and only CUPPA students get that access. So for you all, you get to access CUPPA whenever you would like. And so that there's a benefit to being exclusionary in a sense that there's not going to be students in architecture utilizing the lab space that we offer to you all. It is designed for you and only you. So you could go to the next one, I believe. Cool. So this is a very, very, very important slide, and Rachel and I want to emphasize this dramatically. One thing that we have is on the CUPPA website, so www.cuppa.uic.edu. I don't know if you want to show it, Rachel, or...
I'm afraid of messing up the slides.
Let's not do it. I'll just try to describe it. Yeah, I'll try to describe it in as much detail. It's not too complex. Essentially, if you're looking for anything in terms of resources, whether it is questions about, the handbook policy, or if you want to look at a syllabi or a plan of study template or whatever it may be, there is one web page designed on our CUPPA website for all of these things. And so it's on the CUPPA webpage. You hover over to academics, and then it'll say student resources. You click on that, and then it'll take you down to the MUPP area, and there's all of the relevant resources that you may need as a MUPP student. So, changes of credit hour forms, just anything you could imagine, we house right there. So you can go ahead. Cool. And then I just briefly touched on the handbook, but again, the handbook is what you know it to be. It's a comprehensive overview of the MUPP program, the requirements, the policies, procedures. It breaks down kind of the grad college, requirements of what they expect for you to be able to graduate, whether or not if you add a additional degree to your program of study, all that good stuff. So everything is housed in this document. We are updating it for you all for, the 2020-2021 academic year, but we'll release that closer to the start of the academic year. But in the meantime, you could still look at the 2019 version, which is linked here. It's also linked on the student resources page that I just mentioned in the last slide. So if you wanted to go look at it, this is where you should go. The 2019 version is not going to be that much different than the 2020 edition, only because there hasn't been any, substantial changes in policy or, program requirements. So if you want a good gist of what everything looks like, this is a good starting point. And then student resources. So this is my favorite part. Like I said, I've been a student on campus forever. At least that's what it feels like. And so these were some of my favorite spaces. SSB, here we go with the acronyms. SSB is Student Services Building. It's right off of Racine and Harrison, so right across the UIC, which I guess now is not the pavilion. It is the Credit Union 1 Arena. But it is your central hub for everything student services related. So financial aid, the bursar's office, records, the Disability Resource Center, the Counseling Center, campus care, everything that you could imagine in terms of administrative work happens in this building. So know it, utilize it. It's not that far from CUPPA, which is a benefit to us. A lot of students actually hop on the train at the UIC Halstead stop and then get off at the next stop at Racine and are able to walk directly to the building within 3 minutes. So it is a convenience for CUPPA students. The next one is the Recreation Center. Most campuses have them. Ours is extremely nice. We have one on both the West and East campuses. The East campus is the larger one, which is where our main campus is. There's lazy rivers, rock climbing walls, fitness classes, everything you could imagine at a higher ed institution at this point. The Student Center, which is the largest building on the East campus, houses a ton. So there's the bookstore, the tech center, which is also in the bookstore. Dining, there's multiple banks, so Credit Union 1 and PNC are housed there. The Wellness Center, which is not a doctor's appointment visit. They help you with anything from just wellness education to sexual health education and so on and so forth. So it's more of a educational unit than it is a healthcare one. The Commuter Student Resource Center is a really useful space, especially if you're commuting from your apartment in whatever neighborhood you're in. It is housed and specifically created for commuter students. So there's lounge spaces. The last director, who currently resides there, has Mario Kart tournaments on the what can I think? Whatever the new Nintendo one is, the Switch. There's always Switch tournaments. There's a ton of fun things that happen on in the Commuter Student Resource Center. So I would check that out. And then the last two is the Center for Student Involvement. So that's the office that puts on the Spark in the Park concert series, all the larger kind of events, student-focused events that happen on campus are curated by that center. And then lastly, student leadership and civic engagement, which is my old office. So that's an office where you could go learn leadership development, professional development, get connected with different local leaders in the community, and then also engage in different civic focused work. So whether that is helping other students register to vote or getting them out to actually vote, it's a great place for you to get involved. And I know that office specifically loves CUPPA, more specifically UPP students, and that's why I found myself there all the time. We can go. Student resources, again, this is a continuation. There's a bunch at UIC. Student financial aid and scholarships, the registrar's office, which is anything related to billing, payments, anything with your account status is really the registrar. I've received a couple emails even today. There was an influx around these tuition payment plans, which I hope to touch on at some point during this. But that is the office you would want to contact about all of those questions. Campus Care is the health care insurance that's offered to you as a student. As a student, you must have health insurance. It's just university policy at the system level. If you don't have it, we offer it to you at what appears to be a cheaper rate. The ID center, again, that's for your iCard. Anything related to your CTA, UPass access, that's where you would go, which is also in the student center. The Office of Graduate and Professional Admissions, you've all worked with them, you've submitted an application, you've submitted an intent to enroll, so you know that office pretty well. The grad college is the one that sets the standards, the protocols, the policies for all of the program work that you will be doing. And then the academic calendar. So if you're looking for when are we having spring break, this is a great place to go check that out. Or when is finals week, this is where you would go check that out. Okay, I think this is the last in terms of student resources. The big one that we highlight all the time is UIC Gender and Sexuality Center. The center does a lot of transformative work on campus. They are just one of 8, I believe, of our UIC cultural centers for social change and social understanding. UIC has the first Arab American Resource Center across all campuses nationwide. So we're pretty progressive in the sense of pushing spaces centralized around student experiences and identities. The UIC Gender and Sexuality Center specifically does work around gender neutral bathrooms across campus. They've done everything with safe zone trainings for faculty and staff within our department. And so I feel our faculty and staff is really robust because of this. And we have a pretty strong collaboration between both units to ensure that we're being the best, allies we could be in the department. And then the other two, Graduate Student Council. From every department, we have a representative that sits on this council, helps speak against or for any of the policies, put into place at the grad college level. These are where funding opportunities and funding disbursement happens for, research or travel for conferences. So this is an opportunity for you if you want to sit on that council to advocate for not only yourself, but others in the program. And then lastly, transit. Rachel mentioned the CTA. Specifically, the UIC campus is hit with 2 stops. You could argue 3 if you include the West Campus. But the ones more closely tailored to CUPPA would be UIC Halstead and Racine off the Blue Line. We have multiple Divvy bike stations on campus. We offer an intra-bus service, so between campus to campus, and now we even offer one that goes between UIC and UIUC, so down in Urbana-Champaign, excuse me. And then the UIC night ride, which is if you're on campus late at night, you're afraid to walk anywhere alone, this is a service that you could call and they'll pick you up so you don't have to do that. I think you go to the next one. Cool.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Dominic.
Yep.
And it's great that you could share your own personal experiences, having sort of gone through the undergrad and graduate programs here. So Dominic knows a lot about UIC and what it has to offer. And we'll talk in a minute about sort of which of these builds. I mean, right now there is still some, we're calling it a fluid situation, trying to understand sort of in the fall which buildings will be open and sort of planning for the sort of reopening of the campus. So I think Dom gave you a great sense of everything that's here. It just may not be immediately accessible as we figure out the sort of the safest way to reopen the campus.
Rachel, if I could add too, just to that, I am also sitting on the CUPPA reopening committee. So I am the department representative, kind of assisting in the protocol to which we could reopen CUPPA and invite you back. So if you have any questions of what that looks like in the long term, I could answer any of those, just for your knowledge. And I also want to put it out there that we've mentioned a lot of these student resources that are, physically on campus, but they've also transformed to be digitally accessible. And I know that the departments, this was a long-standing effort that has been going on forever, but I think with COVID, we picked up the pace and have done a really good job at offering students better connectivity between units. And so I don't think you'll have any issues being able to identify where to access help and then being able to do it.
Great, thank you. All right, well, in some ways, I don't want to say this is the most important part of the presentation, but it's kind of the meat of the presentation and just and the kinds of information, like I said at the onset, that we'd really like to convey to you, because I think the clearer the program requirements are in your mind, the easier it's going to be, and I'll use this word that I keep on overusing, navigate, and be easier to navigate through the program. So it's best to sort of see what lies ahead, and to understand very concretely what is going to be expected of you, and what will be offered to you as a student in this graduate program. So the MUPP program, been around since 1974. By this point, it's pretty smoothly functioning. I often refer to it as a well-oiled machine. We've been in this business for a long time, and we've come up with what I think is a great program, and a program that we are constantly refining, right? We are meeting in our committees, we're meeting as a faculty to try to figure out what is the most sort of cutting edge, relevant graduate program in urban planning that we can provide to you. We are the only accredited master's program in urban planning in Chicago, and there are certain things that we have to offer and things that you have to take to continue being accredited. And by accredited, I mean by the American Planning Association, which is the professional sort of membership association for urban planners in the United States. And so we go through a reaccreditation process every 7 or 8 years. And so we also get advice from them about what this professional association, professional organization thinks is critical to understanding, to knowing, sort of knowledge and skills that are going to be important to you as an urban planner. So the program requires you to take 60 credits worth of coursework. And 60 credits can be completed in 2 years. It can be completed in 3 years, 4 years, hopefully not too much more than 4 years, but it's really up to you, right? We don't require you to declare coming into the program that you are a part-time or a full-time student. If you are coming in as a full-time student, that means you're going to be taking, I'm going to say, 3 to 4 classes every semester, and most likely doing your internship over the summer between your first and second years. But 60 credits gets consumed relatively quickly in sort of 4 different categories. The first category are your core courses, and I'll go through them in just a minute. Your core courses are courses that every student in the program takes. We think that they are the core or the foundation of your urban planning educational experience. right? So these are courses that are pretty heavily structured, in that we offer some courses in the fall and some courses in the spring, and we want you to be able to take those courses when they're offered. We don't want you to find that, oh, it's the semester in which you're hoping to graduate and darn, you know, there's that one course that I didn't take, right? We don't want you to have to stay any longer than you have to. We want you to be able to sort of figure out and to sort of see your trajectory moving through the program. So taking your core courses is going to be critical. Secondly, are your specialization courses, right? So we will ask you, not right away, even though in your application some of you stated, oh, I'm really interested in environmental planning, I'm really interested in transit or transportation planning. You don't have to decide right away, so don't stress out about figuring out your specialization before you come into the program. Most students start their specialization their second semester. So for you guys, it would be in the spring. So we have 5 specializations: environmental planning and policy, economic development, spatial planning, community development, and transportation. So those are our 5 specializations. If there's not a specialization there that you feel a particular kinship with, you can design your own. So we've had students create specializations in urban food systems, for example, or in art and culture and urban planning. So if you're interested in creating your own specialization, I would first start talking to your faculty advisor. You can talk to me. We put together, you kind of have to create a sense of what you think the kind of critical building blocks would be in that area of specialization, and identify classes within our department, outside of our department, that would fit into that specialization. And then the third sort of building block, I would put the internship and the professional portfolio together. I would call them your professional courses. And these are courses that are designed to get you sort of thinking and acting like the professional that you are and the professional that you will be. So we do have an internship requirement to complete 300 hours working for an organization. It can be in the city of Chicago or in the region or anywhere across the globe. And then we in the last couple of years, we've gotten rid of a requirement. We used to make students do a master's project, a kind of capstone research project or plan, and we've gotten rid of the master's project, but in its place we've put a 2-credit professional portfolio requirement. And this is simply a kind of sort of compilation of artifacts that you create in your other classes, but displayed in such a way, arrayed in such a way that makes a compelling case for the knowledge and skills that you would bring to the profession. And then the last category of coursework would be your electives. And there are a lot of electives to choose from, both in our department as well as in other departments in the college, so public administration, and other departments around campus, depending on your interests. So just to kind of go back and provide a little more detail and some advice for you about what classes you want to register for, what classes you want to enroll in this coming fall and spring. So right now, I would say you should start thinking about that, right? So particularly just sort of what's coming right ahead, the fall. So the core courses, as I said, these are the foundational classes that all students in the program take. And they equal about 30 credits, and so that is about 7.5 classes. So one of these classes are UPP 458, our Introduction to Geospatial Analysis and Visualization. That's a 2-credit class. Everything else is a 4-credit class. And so 2-credit class means that it just takes up the first half or the second half of the semester. And if you were to go online today or tomorrow and look at the course enrollment webpage, you would see that we offer 2 sections of UPP 458 this semester, and one takes place, like I say, in the first half of the semester, and one takes place the second half of the semester. And that class is an introduction to visualization. It's basically a software class, but a software class that's applied and utilized in the context of urban planning. It's taught by people who are urban designers and planners who have a very sort of highly developed aesthetic and visual sense, unlike myself. I'm kind of more of a sort of numbers and politics kind of a person. But this is a really great class to take as that building block, because you find in the classes that you take after that that you're asked to, come up with a poster board, or you're creating imagistic data that is, that planners use to make a compelling or persuasive case about urban change. So 458 is a 2-credit class, like I say. You can take it beginning or end of the semester. We offer UPP 458 and UPP 461, or Introduction to GIS class, every semester. So if you can't get into it or you don't want to take it your first semester, don't worry, you can take it simultaneously, with another class I'll talk about in your second semester. But that, if I were advising you on what classes you might want to consider taking this first semester, I would put 458 and 461, on the docket. Then we offer 2 kind of more sort of thinking, reading, talking, writing kinds of classes that may be similar to classes that you had as an undergrad if you took sociology classes or urban studies classes. Those are UPP 500, our planning, history, and theory class, and UPP 501, space, place, and institutions. Also what I call lions, tigers, and bears. But these are 2 classes that provide some, sort of basic understanding of the genealogy of the field of planning, right? Where did this field come from? How did a bunch of misfits in architecture and engineering, and then in like systems analysis, kind of get together to form this thing, this profession that we now know as urban planning. So the planning, history, and theory class is a great introduction to the field. I know many of you are coming, most of you are coming from fields that are not planning. We don't expect you to have studied urban planning as an undergraduate. So this is a good way to finally understand what it is that you've signed up for. And so when you're at a cocktail party or just talking to people, once again, when we're doing that, you can explain very concisely what exactly urban planning is. 501, space, place, and institutions, is more of an introduction to the kind of institutional and sort of regulatory aspects of urban planning, like land use and zoning kinds of issues, and also urban theory. So 500 and 501 are offered in the fall. Oops, just kind of disappeared and came back. So I would register, if you were taking 3 or 4 classes in the fall semester, I would register for one of them. You do not need to, and in fact, I would kind of discourage you from taking both 500 and 501 at the same time, just because in terms of the kinds of, parts of your brain that you're using in that class, they're a little similar, even if the content is very different. So if you want to kind of mix it up and have some more sort of software kind of classes and sort of technical classes like UPP 458 and 461, then take 500 or 501 right? 502 is our planning skills class. That is a class that's teaching the basic sort of skills that if you're a planner, people expect you to know, like how to do population projections for particular neighborhoods. So it's a class that's really focused on demographics, statistics, sort of understanding the space of the city, sort of urban research types of skills. And that's a good class as well to take your first semester. It's an introductory class. These are useful skills that you will use your second semester in your 505 and 506 classes. And so the planning skills, we offer 3 sections of that class because we want to make sure that the class sizes are small enough so you can get individualized attention. There's TA that is assigned to the 502 classes, I should say, for your GIS and your geospatial analysis and visualization classes. There are also teaching assistants that are available who have office hours and can help you with these kinds of software-heavy types of classes. So yeah, 502, I think we have 3 sections of that. And I will also mention that with these core courses, we offer typically a class during the day and a class during the evening. So if you're more of a part-time student, or you're working during the day, or if you just have other commitments, there should be each of these classes has an evening offering as well as a daytime offering. So the reason why I was suggesting taking the planning skills class or the visualization class your first semester is because your second semester, we have 2 classes that are, we call them co-requisites. You take them at the same time. And this is one of the neat things about our program. I have not seen too many other programs offer this kind of a course. But we offer 505, 506 our plan making dyad, our plan making classes. One class is more of a lecture class, so everybody in your cohort is together. And then the 506 class is a studio class. You divide up into smaller groups, maybe 15 students. Each one is led by a faculty member, and you're working on a real project. You are writing a plan. You are drafting a plan for a real place. So in the past, we've worked for several years with the city of Gary, Indiana. We worked with the village of Melrose Park, I believe, this past spring. So these are this is a studio that really tries to kind of simulate the experience of working for a planning firm or in the planning department at a local government agency with a real project, real clients. You're meeting with the client, you're interacting with the client, you're coming up with a sort of project management sort of, timeline, you're delegating tasks to different people. And the reason why we require you to take that class sort of early on in the program, in your second semester, is because we find that it's a good way of telling students, or sort of helping students to learn what they do and don't know. Which skills do they really want to beef up? Which skills do they think they've got a pretty good grasp on, right? And one of the ways that you do that, you kind of do a sort of reality check, is by putting those skills into action, working with others to try to do something, to come up with a final product. So your 505, 506 class experience is meant for you to kind of, sort of a midway point in the program for you to sort of check in with yourself and see, well, I really like doing this, or I don't really like doing this. And that way you still have other classes ahead of you, and you could select those, particularly your electives, with that information in mind. And then we have another class, a class that we have offered only, starting to in the last couple of years. And we've always had a commitment to global planning. We've had a lot of international students and a lot of faculty who are themselves from other countries or have practiced in other countries. So now we have a new required class, UPP 508, which is Global Urbanization and Planning. And it's a great class to sort of give you a sense. It's always a little more sort of spatial or designy, sort of thinking about, how is planning different in Madrid than it is in Lagos, or is it, or in Chicago. And so it's to kind of get you out of the, Chicago is the only way to do things, or we often sort of lose sight of the fact that we are living in a pretty distinctive city. Many of us have lived here for a long time or practiced here for a while, but to kind of open up thinking about urbanism, urbanization, and planning to thinking in a non-domestic kind of context. So that's our core, right? Those are the sort of 7.5 classes in the core. These are the specializations, right? The community development, economic development, environmental planning, spatial, and urban transportation. Each specialization has 3 classes in it that you will complete. You don't have so much flexibility with the first 2 classes, so each of the specializations is designed so that the first class is more of a kind of policy and theory class, and the second class is more of a techniques and methods class. And we encourage you to take them in that order, even though exceptions can be made. So the specializations start your second semester. So spring semester, you should know or have some sort of a feeling for which specialization you think you'd like to focus on. I'll say community development is more about sort of housing and neighborhoods. Economic development is more about, the economy, about firm behavior, about workforce issues. Environmental planning and policy, focusing on climate change and sort of planning for, sort of climate adaptation. Spatial planning is a little bit closer to in focus to some of the sort of architecture and design aspects of planning, but really focused on urban form. Transportation, our department has always historically specialized in transit and also in sort of non-motorized forms of transportation, so pedestrian and bike issues. So that first class that you see there, the UPP 540 or 530, 570 is your more theory and policy class. And then the classes that end in one, at least the first few, and then for spatial planning, it's a little different. And transportation as well, a little different, but that second class, like I say, is more of a technique methods class. That will be offered in the fall. And then you have your choice of taking a third class. And there are several classes, several electives that count as your specialization elective. So it's your third class. Many of these classes are more applied, the idea being that, you've learned your theory, you've learned your techniques, now let's put them to work in an applied or studio type of a class. But then there are other classes that are not studios. They are more sort of skills or techniques, or they're more theoretical. So it's really up to you what your third specialization class is going to be. And so that's the specialization. Like I say, if you can't decide, I can't decide, do I want to be community development or economic development? I tell students it really doesn't matter so much, not that it's not important, but the specialization is not transcripted, right? So it's not on your transcript. So it's really that's something that you have some expertise or sort of some depth in. But there's nothing stopping you from specializing in one specialization, but then taking classes from one or two other specializations. So you can take classes in other specializations, other ones other than the one you selected to be your specialization. You can take them, but they just count as electives, right? So you still get that knowledge, but you don't necessarily have to choose to be a double specialist or to be a triple specialist. That's sort of less important, I think, than just whether or not you want to go into depth in a particular sort of area or have a little more breadth coming out of the program. Your electives, like I say, these can be different sort of topics courses, sort of special classes, like we offer this coming semester a class on complete streets, right? Sort of street design, everything from sort of traffic calming issues to signage to bike paths, and just this idea that sort of streets play, and we're seeing this especially these days with COVID, play such an important role in circulation, in sort of in urbanity, and just sort of interacting with people. So that's a special topics kind of a class. We have classes on brownfield. So we have special topics classes. Some of them are only taught sort of every other year. So if there's a topics class that you're interested in, I would take it. And then electives can be, like I say, other classes that are offered in your specialization or in a different specialization, and they can be classes outside of the department. Many students take classes in public administration, our sort of sister department, just because, particularly if you're interested in going to work for a local government, coming out with more skills in like budgeting or, personnel management, or, sort of nonprofit management. These are classes that are offered in PA, and many of our students get a lot out of there, out of those classes. You may be able to, waive out of classes. You get a course waiver if you've taken a class that is duplicative of a lot of the material that is in the class, either for the a core course, or even, actually there's no reason to really waive out of an elective, but typically for the core course, if you feel like of those core courses that I just showed you, if you feel like as an undergrad you took a class that was exactly that, you can apply to waive that class. And what you would do is on that student resource page that Dom talked about, there's a petition basically to waive class. And if you had supporting materials like the syllabus from that class you took as an undergrad, you would basically just sort of make a case to the instructor that teaches that class saying, I think I've covered most of this material. And if the instructor approves that, then you can waive that class. That doesn't necessarily get you out of, it doesn't reduce the number of credit hours that you have to take in the program, but you would have to take that class. So you could fill it in with an elective. If you've taken graduate level classes elsewhere, you may be able to transfer some of those in. So that would also potentially reduce the number of course credits you could take or free you up to take more electives. And then some students opt to do a thesis. That's like a mini dissertation. It's a little bit like being a PhD student. I would only really recommend it if you were considering going on and getting a PhD. But students do have the option of doing a thesis, and that thesis can be anywhere from like 4 to 8, even 10 credit hours, depending upon how extensive your research project is. That would also change the number of electives you could take. But as it says here, a typical MUPP student with no waivers or course transfers typically ends up taking about 3 elective classes, in addition to the core specialization, those professional degree requirements to get to that 60 credits. And here again is the professional practice requirement. You've got to do an internship, 300 hours of working for an organization. We help you with that, even though you are ultimately responsible for sort of signing on the dotted line. We do have an internship placement form that you need to complete. We do an internship fair every spring. Typically 30 to 40 employers show up. And in the past, I'm not sure how we'll do it this year. Hopefully we'll be able to sort of see each other in person by the time this rolls around, but there's a kind of speed dating where you meet with employers and you kind of move from office to office, doing kind of quick interviews. You hand over your resume. We also are circulating information about internships and jobs all the time through our listserv. So it's another way that you would find out about internships and also about jobs. And like I said, if you're going full-time, most students do their internship in the summer, like if the summer between their first and second years. But you can take your credits. Your credits can count, in the fall semester, even if you're doing it during the summer, so that you don't have to actually pay tuition over the summer. And that's your internship, your portfolio. The other sort of aspect or other component of the sort of professional degree credits. The portfolio, like I say, is a compilation of artifacts that you've created in other classes, displayed and arrayed in a very attractive form, both an online and a hard copy. And we do have a portfolio class. It's very kind of mild amounts of sort of student faculty contact. I think, the last semester, the portfolio class met maybe 4 or 5 times during the semester. So a lot of the work is really you sort of putting this together. We have templates. We have a kind of structure that helps us evaluate whether or not an artifact belongs in your portfolio, whether or not it shows off your skills of communication, or it demonstrates your values, or it sort of shows off how much you know, the sort of depth you have in your specialization. So we have a kind of rubric to help you decide what kinds of artifacts should show up in the portfolio. And generally, students take that class their final semester in the program. So it's still a ways away for you guys, but it's always good to be thinking about it, even when you're taking your first semester's worth of classes, because you're wondering, well, is this an artifact? Is this something that, I'm really proud of, or something? Is this a map from my GIS class that I'd want to include, say, in my portfolio down the road? And then we do offer a certificate, and it's optional. We offer it's called the GSAV certificate, Geospatial Analysis and Visualization certificate. And that is a certificate is something that's transcripted, so it does show in your transcript if you care about that. It's basically 12 credits, so 3 classes, and 2 of which you're required to have taken already. So, or as part of the program, everybody takes 461, the GIS class, Everybody takes 458, so it's the 2-credit visualization class. We have a follow-up class, 459, which is, I think, a 458 is sort of 2D visualization, 459 is like 3D visualization, and then another approved GIS class or another class that's taught through our urban data visualization lab. So if you just complete those 3 classes, you fill out a piece of paper, or this form, you can also end up with this transcripted certificate. So I'm trying to think if one of the things that, one of the reasons why I went into such depth about those classes is that we're going to be asking you to complete an advising template, a kind of form that shows us that you're kind of you understand the sort of basic structure of the program, the curriculum. As I said, we have this is recorded and it'll be online. We have the handbook and we have the kind of course scheduling guide, which will also help you to do this. But before we turn to that, I think Dominic and I just wanted to mention, I'm sure a question that many have, which is what's going to happen in the fall in terms of course delivery, right? And maybe Dominic, you want to, being on the committee for the college, if you want to maybe provide a little insight.
Yeah, so right now, UIC, like Rachel keeps saying, it's a fluid situation. It's a weird term, but it really encapsulates what we're dealing with. Right now, we're aiming to not have you on campus, as unfortunate as it seems. It's for your safety, it's for the health and safety of your peers. We think we could still deliver on the same experience, of the program as if you were on campus, but not being on campus. So we're moving forward with that. What I do know is that if there are classes that are being held on campus, they're going to be like smaller scale courses that are going to be held in larger lecture halls. So to accommodate for social distancing. So you may be in a 15-person classroom housed in a 70-person lecture hall, which still feels out of the norm. And so if you're looking for that sense of normality, I don't think you're still going to be provided that, which is a bummer, but that's just what the circumstances of the world are right now. We do have 3 options, though, that going forward of how the classes will be delivered. There's asynchronous, which is you kind of complete the course on your own terms. It's digitally accessible. You go through the competencies and the concepts and the different units at your own speed. I'm sure your professor will still have set deadlines, but what you complete up until that deadline will be facilitated by you, the individual. The other option is synchronous, which is you sign on your computer at the exact same time as if you were attending class in person. And then the last option is the hybrid approach. Again, we're taking those smaller classes and putting them in lecture halls. And even if you are unable to get to campus, whether you're not located in Chicago at the time or you're immunocompromised, you will still have a remote option to sign on and join those classes if they're offered in person. So you're not going to be left in the dust if you're not in Chicago. Now's a really good opportunity if you are regionally based or in a different part of the country to still access, UIC and get the full experience from being at home. So the next part, if you look at the bottom half of this slide, the registration guides, as you begin to register, these are going to be super helpful in determining what type of class you're actually registering for. So the async, again, is the asynchronous option. It's your individual kind of controlled online experience. Synchronous, the sync acronym, again, reflects the synchronous option of being online, and then on-cam is on campus. So if you go to register for classes and you look to see where, what hall or lecture hall or room the class is, and it says async, you know that it's an online course that is taking place, asynchronously. So that's kind of that on that. If you have more specific questions regarding kind of the registration tidbits that are mentioned there, let us know and we'll try to walk you through it. We're all in this together at this point. We're all kind of getting familiar with the new lingo and the new setup. So we'll do our best to help you as much as we can. But I wouldn't worry. I know our last semester, for those of you that weren't able to join the student panel last week, a lot of students actually found discussion and participation to be higher with their online classes than their traditional in-person classes. And our faculty is pretty competent, right? We're not dealing with low-grade faculty in any sense of the way. Our faculty knows how to navigate these online platforms really well, and I think they're capable of delivering the content to you in the best way possible. And the candid experiences and the testimonials from our students that are outgoing or coming back next term have been positive with the digital experience. So that's something you could look forward to.
Yeah, I will say, as a professor who quickly had to migrate her class online last semester following, that Friday the 13th, March 13th will sort of loom in my mind as sort of the day, everything changed. That it was a tremendous amount of work, turning what was an in-person class of 22 people into an online experience. But I know that I did it and my colleagues did it, and we put just a tremendous amount of time into making sure that it was done well. Now, and yeah, when I checked with the students at the end of the semester, they said, there's some positives and negatives. The positive is I didn't have to schlep to campus to take class, particularly those night classes. It's no fun to get out of class at 9 and, have to find your way home and you're tired. It's like, there's something nice about just sitting at home and taking the class. I did find that students who had maybe been less active in participation felt more comfortable with this sort of format, or felt comfortable with this sort of chat. And then some people, just the opposite, they sort of withdrew a little more. But I had 100% attendance for all of my online classes, and I think the information still got conveyed. We still had really good discussions. There are ways of using this platform, Blackboard, in really interesting ways. You can break out into little discussion groups. You can use whiteboards. So even though no one is happy about this, we will follow whatever guidelines and directives the university comes up with until we're sure that this is going to be a safe experience for all of you, right? So I'm still hoping this is a stopgap. I don't want to see this go on for too much longer, but we're doing what we can, and I think we're doing it very well. And like I say, there's some advantages and disadvantages to this format. One of the ways, and we've been brainstorming about this, is I think one of the reasons why the online transition went so smoothly this past semester is that students already kind of knew each other. And they already knew us, they knew the faculty. And as incoming students, we want to make sure that you have that opportunity. So we are planning some both online and in-person, but socially distanced events. Maybe, we're talking about walking tours and bike tours led by the faculty members, small groups of you, so you can get to know each other, but you'd be out, you'd be walking around, you'd be wearing masks. And we're talking about these things as part of a kind of onboarding or orientation session for this coming fall. So hopefully you would be able to have that kind of community building experience before many of your classes went online. Some tips.
I can cover this, Rachel, if you want.
Okay, good.
So just registration tips. Generally, you all know what to take at this point in the core because Rachel just covered it. You don't need to get them out of the way before taking specialization courses or electives, so don't feel like you need to rush to complete all of the core. Just be mindful that they rotate, right? So just because we offer a course in the fall doesn't mean we will offer it in the spring, and so on and so forth. So keep track, stay in constant communication with me, plan ahead, but know that you don't have to rush and bombard your schedule to be all core in the initial stages. The next part, which is something I really, really want to emphasize, is the electives. The greatest part of my grad program, being an MPA student across the hall in public admin, was the electives and being able to take electives in UPP or other departments on campus. The thing that's difficult about electives is they are sometimes only offered once a year or every other year. And so if you miss the opportunity to take that, you may never get that back. So if you see an elective that you think really resonates with your interests, your career goals, or just something that you just want to do because you have extra credit hours to fulfill, just take it. That is the go-to advice there. Yeah. And then what if a class isn't available when you are attempting to register? you're going to contact me. I'm going to add you to a wait list. Just know that as a first semester student, that there are already students on wait lists for certain classes, so you may not access the courses before them. We place precedent for the students that, have to get out of UIC before you. You're just beginning, and there's others that this may be their last semester and they may need that class right away. So just be, mindful of that, accommodate others, and realize that you may not be able to take it this semester, but you definitely will take it at some point. And it's an opportunity for you to take those electives, right? So if you were to rush to try to finish a core course and it was full, now's an opportunity to take one of those electives that are available. And do note, the last bullet point is extremely important, that you can register for anything and everything and drop up until the second week of classes without any penalties. So if you're unsure if you're going to like a course, or you're unsure if this class will reach capacity, just enroll, do whatever you need to do, and then realize that you could drop it into the semester without any penalties. You can go to the next one. Cool. This is for fall 2020 registration. This is more important. I've already had a couple students message me in the chat asking why they're unable to register as we're talking. That's because I haven't granted you approval to do so. And I won't until I receive that advising template that I sent out to you all yesterday. And if you did not receive a copy of those templates for some reason, please let me know and I'll forward you an additional copy. But essentially what these are, they're just tentative course plans, right? So we're not going to hold you accountable to these plans. It's just for us to see that you've thought through what the curriculum looks like and you have a good interpretation of what needs to be done. And so don't get too caught up on what needs to go where, when it needs to be fulfilled. Just try to tailor your thoughts to covering everything in the best way possible and being able to take classes that you want to take when they're available. So what I will say is that we're accepting those until August 10th, but you could submit them at any point until then if you would like to register earlier. So if you feel very competent about the core, requirements and your specialization and just kind of the elective offerings, even after this call, and you want to fill out that form and send it over to me, I will review it, accept it, and then approve you to register for this upcoming term. One thing that you need to have activated is your net ID, that's your UIC account. So if you've been receiving emails at, whatever it is at uic.edu, your account is activated, but it's going to be vital that you activate that net ID. And I could send you a link if you're unable to activate it. Just shoot me an email. But upon there, you're going to go to my.uic.edu, and this is the student self-service kind of platform. This will be where you see your student financial aid records and offers, just your academic history and so on and so forth. But you'll be able to register for classes right in that portal, and you just, search the term UPP being our department and then whatever the course number is. And then you just register. It's truly a breeze. UIC has updated the interface multiple times since I was an undergraduate student. And of course, now that I'm a staff member, it's as easy as possible. So
I will say though, Dom, can I just interrupt? It's sometimes a little, what you'll do is you'll go to like the urban planning and policy classes, and you'll see all of them. They're like, it'll look like there are like 13 different pages of classes. We don't have that many classes, right? In fact, particularly like fall semester, we tend to have fewer classes than we do in the spring. When we offer electives, and I think we tend to offer them more in the spring just because students have more flexibility in the spring. But you'll see pages and pages of like independent research with Rachel Weber, independent research with Stacy Sutton. So these are just like independent studies and master's projects and PhD research. But the bulk of the classes that you'll want to register for are in those first couple of pages. So just don't get overwhelmed. And when you go there, you can see how many people have already registered for the class, how many seats available there still are. And I will say, Dom talked about wait lists and classes. I mean, we tend to be well calibrated in terms of faculty and the classes and the number of students. So it's a pretty rare instance when you can't get into the class that you really want to get into. I mean, for all these core courses that I'm saying you should register for your first semester, we offer multiple sections. What tends to happen is like, the evening classes one year may be filled up really quickly, but the day classes aren't, or vice versa. So maybe sort of finding the class that best sort of fits your schedule. That's more of the issue.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I was going to definitely touch on that. And even if you attempt to register for one of those independent studies, you should be restricted. So if you accidentally make a mistake and try to register for one of those, I'm hoping that it stops you and prevents you from doing that. But I'll boot you from it regardless.
There is a possibility of doing an independent study. I mean, if you really can't find a class on a topic that you're really interested in, what you do is you approach a faculty member and you say, hey, would you be interested in this independent study? And I want to read these things and I want to do these things. And if they say yes, you can register for the independent study. But
yeah, and like Rachel, I think you mentioned with I forgot what course you were talking about earlier, but the credit hours for your independent study are flexible too. So depending on what the workload looks like and the research workload looks like, you could take an independent study from anywhere from 2 credit hours to maybe 6, which is beneficial for students that are looking to maybe do more in a semester without having to take multiple classes necessarily. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think that's all for this. Again, please just get those templates completed. Don't stress out about them as much as you think you need to. This is really for you to just kind of tailor your thoughts, get your own understanding of what the curriculum looks like, and then get your affirmation from me saying that you did, and then being able to register. So if you could have those by August 10th, that's 2 weeks before classes actually begin. We gave you a little buffer in case anything needs to be revised, so on and so forth. But you have more than enough time to complete them before then if you want access earlier on. I think that's all.
Good. Well, thank you, Dom. So we are here and we can answer any specific questions you might have if you want to unmute yourself, or if you want to write something in the chat, or if you just want to get in touch with us tomorrow and set up a, either, an individual advising session, or just, talk by phone or Zoom or email, whatever is good for you. You may have questions once you start filling out the template, or if you have any questions in advance of that. Yeah, we're here to answer those questions.
Yeah, and Rachel, I will mention, I was going through the Facebook group that we created, and I saw a lot of you planning, online happy hours. That's something that I brought up in the discussion. So if any of you are, self-coordinating those things, I obviously love that you are. But if you're finding it difficult to get people to participate, maybe that's something that you could bring forward to me and I could try to structure it at a department level. Because that was one thing that I know I enjoyed as a CUPPA student, was being able to go to the bars with my peers and just catch up on, classwork or anything else. So if you are interested in doing something like that, let me know and I'll coordinate it for you. We do have a question. Do core courses have rotating faculty that teach as far as potentially seeking a waiver? I don't know if I understand. Matthew, do you mind chiming in just to kind of explain the question?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't quite phrase that as well as I could have. So basically, I was reading the waiver form, and I didn't know if faculty rotate teaching those core courses, because it says that I thought you just had to send that form to like the department head, and then it said that you have to send it to the faculty that teaches it. So I didn't know how we might advance who teaches like a core course.
Well, I think all or most of the core courses have already been listed with their the faculty who are teaching them. And so there'll be typically 2 faculty who will be teaching different sections of them. So, if you don't know, or you can't find out just by going to the registration or the enrollment page, just let me know. But yeah, at this point, I think we know who's teaching the classes. I mean, I think the GIS classes, there's still a little bit of question. We have one faculty who may be on sabbatical, and so we're trying to figure out what's going on there. But you wouldn't need to even submit that waiver form until closer to when school is going to begin. So don't worry about that. But yeah, like I said, you can ask me, or you can just go to the website or the portal where you register for classes.
Rachel, we do have another question too around part-time credit hour maxes, credit hour caps. Do you know that off the top of your head? I know the grad college has a general number, but it is by department, so I thought I'd ask you.
Well, we don't have a cap for what we consider part-time, so it's really just whatever you can do, but or whatever you can your schedule can handle. There is, if you go to the tuition website on the registrar's, or the tuition page on the registrar's website, you'll see that there's a different tuition that you pay. You pay tuition essentially on a per credit basis, and it's like 1 to 5, it's this amount, and 6 to this, it's that amount. So there's, if you want to stay within a range, that for tuition purposes, that information you'd find out from the registrar.
Yeah, and that table that Rachel's referring to is kind of difficult to understand just because there's different ranges, but like she said, it's broken down by credit hours. So make sure you're looking at the specific credit hours that fall into the ranges and not just the title of range 1, range 2, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think if you're looking to be a part-time student, you can take anywhere from under 9 credit hours. I think the grad college is the official cutoff. So yeah, and then another thing that I was getting a bunch of emails about was the tuition payment plan. There's a deadline coming up this Friday that I was not even aware of because I don't receive these emails. And for that, I have reached out to different staff on our campus to kind of figure out what the logistics look like for that. So for those that are interested about the payment plan, I ask that you email me specifically so I can follow up once those respective staff members respond. I'm hoping by early tomorrow, that way we could settle this before the deadline on Friday. But I just wanted to let you guys know that I did reach out seeking answers on those things. And is there any others? Any in the chat? I don't see much. Feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. Facebook group. Yes, there is one for incoming students. So we created an admitted student Facebook group. It's on the Urban Planning and Policy Facebook page. Irene, if you can, do you mind sending me your email address and I'll send you access to that? But if there's anyone else that's not on that Facebook group that wants to be, shoot me an email. I'll include my email here. But feel free to shoot me an email saying you want to join the Facebook group and I'll grant you access. Any others?
When you take, I'm answering Megan's question. I don't teach the GIS classes, but I know that, we have students who come in with PCs and students who come in with Macs, and they're able to download the software package, I'm assuming it's Esri, that is used for the GIS classes. And the campus store has made discounted versions of these additional software, available to the students. I know that all of our lab computers are outfitted with the software that you would need for GIS. But if you have a question about that, I would direct you to Moira Zellner, who runs our urban data visualization lab, and if she can work with you on that, or one of the TAs, the GIS help desk folks would definitely know the answer to that.
I had it on my personal computer just for access. If you don't want to be in the CUPPA labs, or there's other computers across campus that do have GIS, they're more difficult to find than obviously the ones that are stationed in CUPPA. But if you're looking for convenience, I think having a compatible computer could help you there.
Dimitri, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I also wanted to see what the raise hand function was all about. But yeah, so as we begin working on our templates and regarding dual specializations, is an additional declared specialization a transcripted item, or is it more of an informal plan? And I guess depending on that, are there specific forms for what that declaration process is?
No, so it's pretty informal. Your specialization really is about you and the area in which you are hoping to develop particular sort of strengths. The specialization is not transcripted. Even your primary specialization is not transcripted. So that's why, as I said, I often don't recommend that students do 2 specializations. I don't think it's all that important. I think to just choose one and then selectively take classes in other specializations is probably the way to go.
Okay,
And there's no form for declaring a specialization. It's just
okay.
whatever, whatever classes you start on. So second semester, you are generally taking your first specialization class. But if you take that first specialization class and you hate it, or you don't love it, right? It doesn't resonate. You're not held to being in that specialization. You complete the class and it just counts as an elective.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Matthew asks about the other data visualization classes. So those are software classes that focus on, sort of imagistic kinds of data that are not necessarily maps. So, if you were putting together, let's say, a poster board that's demonstrating what a site would look like before and after redevelopment, right? You wouldn't necessarily be using GIS, but you'd be using InDesign, or you'd be using, forgetting some of the other software packages that they're loading, Photoshop, and so it's no, I don't. Not for 458, but yeah, the 458 is 2D visualization. I'm it's mainly sort of InDesign, and then 459 is more sort of 3D visualization.
I was trying to remember the architectural rendering platform.
Mm-hmm. CAD.
CAD, there you go.
Right. Yeah. I'm not sure that. I think you may do some of that in 459.
Yeah. Any others? I'm really excited to meet everyone in person, just because they're gonna realize that I'm not this tiny.
Dominic's really tall. And he doesn't always wear a backward-facing baseball cap. When we can actually get, haircuts, we look different than we look right now. Well, you guys.
Questions or? Oh.
Yeah. Nope. If there aren't any questions, I think we'll bid you farewell and to enjoy this evening and enjoy the rest of your summer. And that we are here from you, and we're here for you, and we hope to hear from you about any questions or concerns that you might have. We want to make this as easy as possible, and as Dom said, we really want to meet you in person, not just over some computer interface or via the phone. So we're hoping that we can kind of get back to business as soon as we can. But
yeah, and before everyone goes, Rachel, too, I did receive separate private messages about coordinating a happy hour. So I will get planning on that for all of you. I don't necessarily have to participate, so I don't break the structure of your cohort. But I'll get that going for you, each and every one of you, if that's something you're clearly interested in. But yeah, thank you all for joining. I look forward to working with you all. You're kind of my first incoming batch of students, so I'm thrilled for this. Yeah.
All right, everybody, take care, stay healthy, be safe, and we'll see you soon.